What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and it's just Talking Transfer Show, which I'm not even really in the mood for, were you? I mean, I just want this season over with and to have a little bit of a break from club football. But there's been some huge news coming out in the Premier League at the very least, and that is that Harry Kane has told Tottenham Hotspurs that he wants to leave. It's very interesting. I think it was obvious. I think it's been obvious now all season, and I think Tottenham are fucked. I think Tottenham are in the mud. They are in serious trouble. This is a guy that has contributed over half of their goals this season in both scoring and assists. They ain't going to cope. They're not going to cope with him. And Spurs, and this is no disrespect to Spurs, but Spurs were very much on the cusp of going from this Big Six club to sort of dropping into the top 10. We fought it for a while. Their defence has looked shaky. They've got Eric Dyer, who's ageing, Alderweireld, who's ageing. They've got probably two very, very, very good players in Son, Kane, and Ndombele on his day. But with Kane leaving, it sort of makes me think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Son, I must say. They'll use the money to replace the team. They'll spend... I'm assuming they'll spend a lot. So whether it's 120 million, 150 million, they'll spend it all. But they're still not going to be as good. We've seen Spurs, when they've had big amounts of money, they signed 8 players and they were a complete waste of time. You just have to ask Spurs fans when it talks about Lamela. So, very big news. Now, obviously, that's not Everton related, so let's get into Everton. Mason Holgate looks like he could be on his way. I think Carlo's had enough of him. I think the Everton fans have had enough with him, and apparently Everton will listen to offers. Fucking talk. Listen to offers for the centre back. I'm not surprised. He's had a very poor season. I was really disappointed with him because last season, you can look at my old tweets. You can look at a lot of old Evertonian tweets from last season, and we're all screaming for how good he was, and it's gutted me how poor he's been. It really has. He seems to have got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's just not the same player he was. So it looks like Mason Holgate will be leaving Everton. Then there's several others. Theo Walcott has officially signed a 2-year deal with Southampton today. A deal which is good for him and good for us. He was on, I think it was $100,000 a week here. I don't know whether we were subsidising any of his wages at Southampton, but he is a player off the books. And one of these signings that was never quite good enough. We come into Everton when we needed a ball-carrying player. Sam Allardyce wouldn't play Ademola Lookman, so he needed to bring someone in. He went and bought in Theo Walcott, and he did a job. He did a job. He carried the ball. He did score a couple of goals. So, yeah, look, fine. Good luck to him. But I don't think there's going to be any Everton fan that is particularly upset that he's gone. Another rumour, Sigurdsson. Apparently, it was rumoured that he would be signing a new deal in February, a 1-year extension, and that hasn't happened. There is only 5 weeks before his contract is up, and it's very interesting to see whether Gylfi Sigurdsson will remain an Everton player next season. I suspect he won't. It really wouldn't surprise me if he leaves. I think you've got a player there who is capable on his day, but we just never see his day. We never see his day, and I think he's going to really struggle. Mohamed Besic, he will also be leaving Everton this summer. He's out of contract. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. So that'll be interesting. But it wouldn't surprise me if we actually see Besic tomorrow. It really wouldn't. It would not surprise me if we saw Besic at least on the bench tomorrow. I'm not saying he'd even get game time. It just wouldn't surprise me because if I remember, he was put in a Premier League squad list in January, so we could see him. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as a result of the link with Harry Kane leaving, potentially going to Manchester City, Man United or Chelsea, ridiculous rumours come out that Spurs may look to Everton for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, there's going to be Spurs fans on here, and I'm very, I one particular Spurs fan, Tobes, I've got a lot of time for. He talks a lot of sense. Really good lad. He's been on the channel a few times. Got a lot of time for Tobes, but I think he, to be fair, isn't guilty of this. I think some of the members of the Big Six show, I think they sort of played Everton down a little bit last night on their show. And it pissed me off a little bit because I understand their perception of Everton isn't maybe as high as my perception of Everton. And trust me, my perception of Everton right now are that they are bottling arse faces who shouldn't be anywhere near a Premier League pitch. However, you can't really, I can't really hold it. I don't want to keep holding that against them. So I'm trying to move on today. But there's no way Spurs can come to Everton and sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin without paying completely over the odds. For several reasons. One, we do have a better manager. Whether you're Carlo in or Carlo out, we have a better manager than Ryan Mason. And I'm not saying he won't potentially be a good manager. I'm just saying he's had 3 games in charge. You can't compare the two. They've got a stadium which is, in my opinion, built more for American football than it is Premier League. The club is soulless as a result. So, again, I just don't think they are connected to the fans at all. You've got a team of players where their best players are either leaving or aging. And the recruitment at Spurs over the years, as Everton, to be fair, although we did get it right last summer, in my opinion, has been atrocious. So why does Calvert-Lewin join Spurs? I don't get it. I will happily put money on that Everton finish above Spurs next season. But I will happily put money on that. So expressions. Tobes, Harry, if you want to take that bet, we'll take that bet. But I think Everton finish above Spurs next season, and it wouldn't make sense for Everton to sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Spurs. Although some people would have no problem driving him there, so sort of on the fence about it. Talking about incomings then. Ancelotti come out today and he said he wants a winger. He's confirmed he wants a winger. It was the most ridiculous question at the end of a press conference I've ever heard, because he literally comes out, the guy, I don't know who he is, and he comes out and he says, can you confirm basically if you're going to sign a winger? And Carlo was just like, well, yeah. We all know that. He said it for months. So it was a pointless question. I think he could have asked a better question. But for me, Carlo Ancelotti knows the players and the areas that he needs to strengthen. That's why I'm not too on Carlo's back, because I do trust that there is at least a thought process. When I saw Ronald Koeman and Walsh, I didn't see a thought process. I saw 3 number 10s coming in at the same time. Slow, sluggish players. I saw Klassen playing on the left wing. I didn't see a plan. I saw the Martinez side where he had a plan. So for me, I think I've given Carlo's got my trust, and Marcel Brands, as a result of Carlo, has got my trust, because again, I think Brands operated very poor with a poor manager alongside him. A Marco Silva didn't really work for me, because he was never going to attract the level of player that Everton would need to get into the top 4, whereas Carlo Ancelotti will. So it's very much down, in my opinion, to how Carlo manages these players. And whether you think he's done it right or wrong this season, he come out with a stat today that when we've played defensively, we've won 14 out of 21 games. And when we've played attacking, which is the other, 15 games, we've won 2. Now, I don't agree with that comment. Obviously, he has that stat and that ideology somewhere wrote down. For him to bring that stat up, he has thought about it. We did not play defensive at the start of the season, and we won 4 games straight. So, unless he is saying that the first 2 games that we won this season were the 2 games he went all out attack, I don't understand how we haven't won more based on his stats. You know, attacking wise, Everton certainly attacked teams for at least the first 7 games this season. We lost away at Newcastle, we lost away at Southampton, we lost at home to Manchester United. But before that, we'd won 4, then we'd got a draw against Liverpool at Goodison, and then we started this poor run. I don't understand where this attacking and defensive argument has come from, because Carlo Ancelotti last night, on Sunday night, pretty much had the exact same side he had available, at least, for the game against... Who did we start the season with? You know, say Brighton or West Brom. He pretty much had that team. We scored 4 or 5 goals, depending on which game you select out of them. He could have set up the same way, but he didn't. And I don't understand that. That's the bit I question of Carlo. I don't understand. And as I said, I trust him, but I think we need more than a winger in the summer. You know, we're talking about transfers here. You know, if Mason Holgate needs, we need a centre-back. We certainly need a new right-back. I would definitely say we need a ball-carrying centre midfielder. I think we need a winger, and I think we need a striker. And that's without any of the sort of main players potentially leaving. You know, that is just saying that's what we need. And I've got no doubt that we will go and get them. But I think there has to be a realisation that actually this squad, although it's got names on paper, these players aren't good enough. You know, Andre Gomez is not good enough. He had a good 6-month period at Everton. A lot of people say he's been worse since the injury. He was shit before his injury. He was not very good before his injury. You know, Alex Iwobi has never been a good footballer. Never. He would never get into a top 10 side. Yet Everton spunked 35 million on him, or 28, or whatever the reports say. We spunked that money on Alex Iwobi. It was a complete waste of money. And I don't know whether at the time when we bought in players like Iwobi, that was because Marco Silva was a manager and couldn't attract these big names, or whether Marcel Brands just let him down. But he overspent there. So for all the people that give him credit last summer, including me, happily deserved it 100%. To spend £65 million on the quality of players he did is phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant work. But that also doesn't take away the fact that this is a guy that has signed a lot of players for big money who weren't worth it. So I am sort of on the fence. I trust that they'll get it right. I'm trusting them that they'll get it right this summer, and next season we'll have a good season. But there needs to be a lot of work. And me and John went through the team earlier, and we worked out 11 players that we would sell. Now, obviously, we both know this isn't FIFA. This isn't Football Manager. Everton can't afford to just get rid of 11 first-team players like that. But, you know, if you really break down this team, Cenk Tosun, Iwobi, Bernard, Sigurdsson, Gomez, they're 5 already that I'd have no problem leaving. I'd have no problem any of those players leaving. You know, I don't know how much money that would raise, but that 5 players just there. And that's without talking about a Mohamed Besic. That's without talking about a potential Mason Holgate going. That's without a Richarlison potentially leaving, because he does not seem to even be involved in the sort of Everton Twitter world like he used to. He just seems to have, whatever has happened between Richarlison and Everton, it seems to have fallen apart, which is a real shame, because I really like Richarlison, but this season I've really struggled with him, and I've backed him, I've protected him. You know, when John was on the channel having a right go at me for my opinions on Richarlison, it turned out he was right. He was right. So I really think this summer's huge for Everton, and from a transfer perspective, you know, whether it is a Leon Bailey, whether it is a a Baku at right back, whether it's a Koulibaly at centre back. I kind of just want us to go and get young, hungry players who we know are going to be or will be or are very, very good, exceptional footballers. Because we don't need to sign any more has-beens or older players who have done really well in the past or have played for Barcelona and succeeded. I want to get the young lads that are trying to get into the Champions League, try and make that next step in their career. And this is why this summer's so important. And this is why I think players like Max Aarons, a Basuma, or even a Dwight McNeil, an Anguissa from Fulham, an Ivan Toney from Brentford. This is why I kind of think these players are the ones that I'd prefer to more take a gamble on. And I know none of those are Premier League players, and or you know, I know none of them you might think can 100% make the grade, but I trust that they're good enough or young enough to at least develop. You know, Aston Villa, a very good signing for Aston Villa last summer was Matty Cash. Come from the Championship, was absolutely, he's been brilliant for Villa this season, and I'd have no issue signing him. But yeah, you know, he's not going to leave Villa for Everton because there isn't that gap anymore between football teams. You know, you can see an Everton compete with a Chelsea for a signing. You can see a Villa compete with a Spurs for a signing. You can see these teams competing with each other. You know, there was a random funny report last night that out of 5 Premier League teams that had inquired about Harry Kane, Everton was one of them. Now, we both know, or we all know, that is bullshit. But it was funny to read. And you wouldn't have had that 2 years ago. You would have had that Everton were linked with Yarmolenko against West Ham. Or you would have had that Everton and West Ham were up for Jesse Lingard. You wouldn't have it that Everton has got the choice out of Manchester United for Koulibaly. You know, Everton and United for Koulibaly. You wouldn't have that. But yet we've done it. And we've done it several times. We've signed Mina over Arsenal, over Manchester United. Gabriel signed for Arsenal over Everton. It happens. You know, James Maddison signed for Leicester over Everton. You know, you've sort of got to put a few things in perspective. You know, Ben Godfrey picked Everton over other clubs. It's sort of, Everton have to utilise Carlo Ancelotti this summer to get the players that we want, and it's a huge job, but I do trust him. But he won't have long. And I don't mean that as if I'm trying to put pressure on him. It's not that. Everton have lost 9 times at home this season. In my opinion, you know, whether you want to go back to the 1952-53 season and really say, no, it's not the worst. But in modern time, this is by far the worst I've seen Everton. And, you know, the football's horrendous. A lot of people were saying about, you know, the style of football being shit under Sam Allardyce. I can tell you there was times where Sam Allardyce set us up attacking. You know, I can say that. Yet we played Sheffield United the other night and we had 5 defenders on the pitch. At least one holding midfielder, whatever you want to call Decore, and our most creative footballer was having to come into our first third of the pitch, picking up a ball from a centre-back and pinging 65-yard balls. It was worse than Sam Allardyce football, but yet we won't say that because this is Carlo Ancelotti. And you might disagree with my opinion, and I'm not sitting here to try and cause any sort of ruckus or any, emotional shit. But it's true, in my opinion. From what I saw of Sam Allardyce, I remember some of the creative football we played against the Newcastle side with him as manager. We won that game 1-0, but it could easily have been 4 or 5. I remember that game, and a lot of people said it was horrendous. How many people were saying that because it was the manager's name, not actually the style of football? You know, how many people... Moyes is a prime example of this. Moyes' last season in charge at Everton, we were fantastic. The football was exhilarating. It was quick. It was aggressive. I loved it the last season under David Moyes. I remember us playing Villa at Villa Park, and the football was the best football I think I'd ever seen as a Everton fan at that point. You know, I'd seen a little bit of Walter Smith football, horrendous. You know, I'd seen a little bit of, you know, the early David Moyes football. But I do remember Everton playing beautiful football, 2006 to 2008. I would say it was better football than we played in the season we finished in the Champions League. We were so close, in my opinion, to breaking that top four under David Moyes in that last season. And I know there was a huge points gap, but the football was so good. It was so good. Kevin Morales that season, some of the goals he scored, I think he got one, I think he might have been under Martinez, that goal. But a goal he scored against Spurs was amazing. You know, I remember him picking up the ball against Stoke and running 35, 40 yards from his own half and dinking it over a goalkeeper, having beaten a man in the middle. I don't trust Everton to play like that anymore. I don't think I've seen that style of football ever. You know, I've seen Ross Barkley pick up a ball in his own half and beat 6 Newcastle players and score a goal. But I also saw David Moyes, Ozzy Osman do that against Sunderland. So I think people can be highly critical of football at times and the style of play and the results, etc. But genuinely, in my last, say, 15 years as an Everton fan, I would say this is the worst football I've ever seen. I don't feel like at times there's anything. You know, I saw a disjointed performance. I saw Allen passing back constantly. I saw Decore and Rodriguez having to pick up balls from Mason Holgate. I saw Mason Holgate trying to chew gum and pass at the same time, which, trust me, that man can't do. You know, I saw Dominic Calvert-Lewin have a touch that, to be honest, was as bad as any Lukaku touch that we all used to say was horrendous. I saw a Richarlison, which, if we had options Carlo Ancelotti trusted, would be nowhere near that first team, would be nowhere near that 11. And we kid ourselves. This summer's huge. It's absolutely massive. And I know this is a bit more of a serious video. I only planned on it going 10 minutes, but, you know, I wanted to really sort of drum down into my opinions tonight. It's very sombre. But this season's huge. This transfer window's huge. And I don't care what the result is tomorrow against Wolves. I don't care what the result is against Manchester City. Unless we pick up 6 points, and then for some reason we might have a chance of still qualifying for Europe, but I can't see it. For me, next season is the one. Because if we have a bad season next season under Carlo Ancelotti, with hopefully the money is going to be backed with, then what is the point? What is the point? And I question that. I question that. There's a lot of people that don't have faith in it. There's a lot of people that have turned, not necessarily their back on Everton, but have sort of, they've been upset by Everton, certainly at home this season. And I have. But I do trust that we'll get it right. I have that faith. That's what it is. I have faith that we'll get it right. And next season, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not going to predict us to finish 2nd, 3rd or 4th. But I am going to predict that we finish in the top 6, maybe 7th. Because we have to achieve more than 8th place every season. We need to achieve more. And to clubs like Spurs, who are on a downward slope, a very quick one. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they finish below Aston Villa and West Ham as well next season. I really think Spurs could be a bottom 10 club next season. And that, again, I'm not poking holes at Tottenham. I just think losing Harry Kane is massive. Arsenal, we don't know what their owners will do. We have no idea what Arsenal will do. But we've seen that Leicester have cemented themselves in the top 6 now. You know, anyone that sat here and would say that Leicester isn't a top 6 club would be lying. You know, the players they've got, the recruitment they've done, it's phenomenal. They've built a really young, fast team, and it looks like Jamie Vardy might be coming to the end. It looks like Iheanacho might have just come good, but they're going to need another striker very soon. And if they get a top striker, Leicester can compete, like seriously compete. So Everton have got to push in to where Arsenal and Tottenham, in my opinion, won't be. And this season we failed because of West Ham. I think next season's huge. And if we invest right, then I do think Everton will be a top 6 side. But it's going to be huge. Recruitment's going to be huge. So, yeah. Guys, I'm leaving it there. I know it's a bit negative, but I just, you know, it's good to sort of have that discussion sometimes. And, yeah, keep smiling. Watch along tomorrow, obviously, as normal. I'll see you 20 minutes before kick-off. And make sure you share with your friends, you like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. We've done well on subscribers over the last few days. We've had 50 subs, which is above average. Obviously, my video went down quite well yesterday, the match preview. So if you can support this one, really appreciate it. And yeah, I don't say up the toffees anymore because they don't deserve it this season. So I say up the networkers, up us, because we deserve it. We've been through the mill over the last 14 months. You know, we've been in a really dark place over and over again. And as a group of football fans, we deserve to support each other. So, guys, support yourselves. And, of course, up the networkers. Peace.